All right, we're on. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay, Luke chapter 16. Yahushua told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, how much do you owe my master? 800 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 400. Then he asked the second, and how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, take your bill and make it 800. The master commended the honest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? If you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal.
My bad, Mom. Go ahead.
Okay, I believe I'm up to verse 16. No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both Yahuwah and money. The Pharisees who loved money heard all this and were sneering at Yahushua. He said to them, you are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of men, but Yahuwah knows your hearts. What is highly valued among men is detestable in Yahuwah's sight. The law and the prophets were proclaimed until John. Since that time, the good news of the kingdom of Yahuwah is being preached, and everywhere, and everyone is forcing his way into it. It is easier for heaven and earth to disappear than for the least stroke of a pen to drop out of the law. Anyone who divorces his wife and marries another woman commits adultery, and the man who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked the sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man who died and was buried, in hell, is what my Bible says. When he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, Father Abraham, have pity on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire. But Abraham replied, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you is a great chasm has been fixed so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. He answered, then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them so that they will not also come to this place of torment. Abraham replied, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. He said to him, if they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead.
Yeah. This is my pet peeve about translators and divorce. No. Okay. No, that's not what it's supposed to say. It should say whosoever puts away his wife and marries another commits adultery. Why? Well, if you go to the Torah, okay, a woman that's put away is still married to that man. Mm-hmm. So if say I'm a man, I put away my wife and then I try to marry another woman, I'm committing adultery. Why? Because I'm still married to that woman I just put away. This is not.
Oh, sorry, but when you said say I'm a man, that just cracked me up.
Well, I'm trying to relay, Mom, the importance of the difference of these words here, because it's important here. This is doctrine here. This is important to understand. Yeah. Divorce is the wrong word, okay? Yeah. Because it contradicts Torah, okay? Torah says that when a woman's put away, she's still married to that man. Right. So vice versa, if a man tries to marry a woman while he's still married to the woman he puts away, then he commits adultery. So see, the problem is these Christian translators don't have an understanding of Torah, right? And they mistranslate a Greek word. And then we get this weird doctrine in Christianity that you are going to the lake of fire because you got divorced and remarried. There's nowhere in Torah, nowhere in his law does it say it is a sin to divorce someone and remarry. Okay, so when we start misunderstanding stuff like this, then we start adding to his law and adding to his commandments. Okay, the correct translation should be whoever puts away his wife and marries another commits adultery. Whosoever marries her that is put away from her husband commits adultery. It's a very easy concept if they would translate the word correctly. It's a very easy concept to understand. When you just to explain here, for those that don't know what being put away is, okay, when a man puts away his wife in Torah and Hebrew culture, it means that she's not under his covering. She's not being supported by him. She doesn't live under his roof. She basically has no spiritual, physical covering, yet she is still legally his wife and she cannot marry someone else. Right. Versus giving her a bill of divorcement and being divorced. 2 separate actions. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
You can go ahead. I got to find where I was at. I lost my place.
Okay. All right. So just to add to, if your Bible has hell in this chapter, that is correct. I know my mom was a little confused when she saw hell. Hell is actually the right Greek word there. So that's not a problem. What people lack to understand is the Greek word hell is the Greek equivalent of Sheol. So whenever you see hell in your Bible, it's not the lake of fire. That's another tradition we got to unlearn there. It's not the same thing as Gehenna. It's not the same thing. So Yahushua is not talking about the lake of fire in this parable. He's talking about a place of torment in the underworld, in the place of the dead. Okay, where everyone is 6 feet under right now. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about the lake of fire. Okay, he's talking about hell is literally, you can prove this in the Septuagint. Every time the Masoretic text has Sheol, if you compare it side by side, it will say hell in the Septuagint. It's not the lake of fire. So when he says in verse 23, in hell he lifted up his eyes, it's talking about Sheol. It's talking about the grave. Okay, so just wanted to explain that. And let's see, was there anything else I wanted to touch on? I think that's about it. So that's pretty much everything else is self-explanatory. The whole point of this parable here of Lazarus is to show rich men that, your money's not going to, get you anything after you die. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you're righteous. That's the whole point of the parable, is to show these Pharisees, oh, we're so pious because we're rich and we have possessions, and our outer appearance will get us into Abraham's bosom. Nah. That's the whole point of the parable here is Yahushua's basically saying to them, by the way, you're going to be on the wicked side of Sheol. You're going to be where the gulf is fixed, not in Abraham's bosom. That's the whole point of the parable. Just FYI, that's what Yahushua was trying to relay to the Pharisees. Like, you think you know everything. You think, oh, you're beloved children of Abraham. Well, I'm going to put you in your place right now. You guys outwardly seem pious, but inside, you're like dead tombs, skeletons, dry bones on the inside. Also, I wanted to mention verse 31. I find it so interesting. Us from a Christian background, we love this chapter, right? But we avoid verse 31 like the plague. What does it say? And he said to them, if they hear not Moses, aka for a Christian that's listening in, if you don't think the Torah applies to you, they will not be persuaded someone would rise from the dead. So what Yahushua is saying here, oh, you don't want to believe in Moses' writing? You might as well not believe in me.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. So I just find it interesting. You'll never hear that preached in a Christian pew.
No.
You'll never hear this verse preached, because Yahushua is literally comparing belief in the Torah connected to believing someone is resurrecting from the dead. You'll never hear that in a Christian church preached, though. You'll never see them touch on that verse. That's one they avoid like the plague. See here. What's the other one? I really like how the NLT words one of these verses here in this chapter where it talks about the stroke of the law. What verse was that, Mom? In chapter 16 of Luke, where it talks about one stroke of the law will not fail. Trying to look for it. It is full of sores, purple and linen furred. Okay, we already talked about that. And it's easier. Yeah, here we go. Verse 17.
Okay.
Luke 16, verse 17. I want to look at, I remember reading this a day or so ago, and it was a lot more pro Torah in this translation, I noticed in the NLT. And sometimes NLT does do that, surprisingly. Unfortunately, once you get the Paul's letters, it kind of like contradicts itself in that translation. But when you look at Yahushua's words in the New Living Translation, it really brings out how important it is and how the Torah is definitely not done away with. So let me see here. So let's go to Luke 16 here, verse 17. Okay, so this is how the New Living Translation reads in that verse. It says, and I'll start with verse 16. Until John the Immerser, the law of Moshe and the messages of the prophets were your guides, but now the good news of the kingdom is preached, and everyone's eager to get in. But that doesn't mean that the law has lost its force or power. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's easier for heaven and earth to disappear than for the smallest point of Elohim's law to be overturned. I really like how the NLT brings that home. So it doesn't lose its power. Okay. The Besorah doesn't do away with the Torah. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's how the NLT words it. So I really like that. And by the way, I know some people would read verse 16 as, well, John the Baptist stops, the law and the prophets are done because of John the Baptist. That's not what it's saying. The word here is until John. That's all it's saying. It's not saying John did away with the Torah and the prophets. Okay. Saying that they were, meaning prior to John the Baptist. That's all it's saying. So if we just interpret the way it reads, you know, you're not going to get some anti-Torah doctrine from that. You really have to put your own interpretation into the word until to get that concept. You know, you got to be anti-Torah reading into that verse to really get that sort of concept. I mean, there's very few translations that really mess that verse up. I mean, it's very easy to understand. I mean, the law and the prophets were until John, meaning they were prior to John. That's all its meaning. And the kingdom of Yahuwah is preached, and every man presses into it. Some translations will say forced to enter in, or they're trying to steal a place into it. Like, it kind of gives it's almost like it's hinting that Yahushua is referring to the Pharisees and them. They're trying to enter in another way, possibly. That's why it talks about pressing into it, or they're trying to go in front of someone else to get into it. But anyway, that's all I wanted to bring up from this chapter that my mom just read. I think everything else was self-explanatory. But yeah. All right, Brother Joshua, did you find what you wanted to bring up, or?
Yeah. This first parable that he gives, he seems to be being facetious, and in one place I wonder if this word has been changed. Maybe not, maybe I'm just misunderstanding it, but the rest of it, he definitely seems to be being facetious. Verse, a couple points I'll touch on and then explain what I mean. Where he says, you can no longer be house chief unto me. And then he says, what shall I do? For my master takes from me the house headship. I cannot dig, and to beg I cannot shame. So that right there is kind of showing pride. He's too prideful to go out and get a job, and he's too prideful to be begging. And so then you kind of go on. He's talking to other people, other debtors of his master, and he's telling them to write down and be deceitful, changing how much they owe to him. And then it says that the master commended the house chief who was unjust, which I really wonder if that word commended or praised was changed, because that doesn't seem like something that Yahuwah would say at all. However, the rest of following that, it kind of gives is also right. I think that he changed it because he seems to be pointing out this is not something that you should be doing. He says, for the sons of this world are wiser than the sons, or shrewder than the sons of light in this generation. Also I say unto you, make to you friends from this wealth of unrighteousness, that when perfect, they may receive you into the tabernacles of eternity. And we know that, we make friends with people that are making wealth of unrighteousness. They're not going to receive us into the tabernacles of eternity. They don't have that authority to do so. So I really think that Yahusha is being facetious there, like, be friends with heathen and see if they can receive you into the tabernacles of eternity, knowing that they can't. And the little is faithful, and the great also is faithful, kind of showing that if he had been faithful to begin with, with what he was given, then rather than in the little being unjust, he wouldn't have been in the great unjust. If he had been faithful from the beginning, then he would have been faithful not to do what he did by having those other people change what they owed to him. But he was unfaithful from the beginning. He was too prideful to go out and get a job. So then he was extremely unfaithful by telling them, here, change this, change this, change this.
Yeah. I personally like how the NLT puts it. They don't use the word unrighteous here. It says, the rich man had to admire the dishonest rascal for being so shrewd. And it is true that the children of this world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than are the children of light. Here's the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then when your earthly possessions are gone, they will welcome you into an eternal home. So I think the point, what Yahushua is trying to say is, try to get along with everyone, because eventually you're going to need help from someone financially. And I think that's the point he's trying to bring. I don't think he's saying, make friends with people that have dishonest gain. Obviously, I would agree with Brother Joshua. That would make no logical sense. So what he's talking about, he's talking in a general application sense. Try to make friends with people of this world, so that way when you're in need, they'll help you out. I think, to put it in layman's terms, is what he's talking about. Go ahead, Joshua, and then after you, I'll go to Sister Sally. She also has her hand up.
Definitely a possibility, and I've heard that in a lot of Christian circles growing up. However, the fact that he's saying eternal homes, I think he's being facetious there. I could be wrong.
Oh, yeah, the eternal homes part might be facetious, but I think the rest of it, there you see a lot of times in the Tanakh where Yahuwah is telling his people to allow the Gentiles to help them out and all that. So, yeah, I would say both is true. I would say possibly the eternal homes part definitely seems facetious, because just the word eternal there kind of doesn't make sense, since obviously, Gentiles, can offer us to stay with them and stuff like that, but it's never eternal. This life is never eternal. So I would agree with you. It wouldn't make much sense, a literal application of that last phrase, eternal homes. He probably is being a little facetious there. But Sister Sally, go ahead. I see you got your hand up. I don't know. You might need to unmute yourself. So you got your hand raised. Do you want to mention anything, Sister Sally? Going once, twice. Okay. Just unmute yourself, sis, if you wanted to mention something. Because I don't think I'm able to from my end. So
I did not have my hand up. I don't know why my hand was up on the screen.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. It's not your fault. It must be a glitch happening. All right. Well, I think that's it. Unless anyone wants to mention anything else, I think that's the end of today's reading. So I think I just want to say I hope everyone got something out of it today. And to all of our brothers and sisters out there, have a great rest of your Sabbath, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
You're welcome, sis. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.